A new disorder. Internalizing everything. You see, this is going to feed into something Anal Eaten Mummy God told me, and it kind of bugs me because you would be surprised at how being forthcoming and straightforward is actually a lot better way of speaking to me outside of saying this guy and all these other things. Okay? Speak plainly. Thank you. Seriously. Internalizing everything. Here we go. This is what it is, and this is a mental disorder I have that, once again, I wasn't informed about. But don't worry, I'm taking Anal Eaten Mummy God's advice for the first time in my fucking existence in journaling. The same way I didn't listen to him about Jeffrey Epstein, and I turned out to be wrong about that, too. I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. I'm not one of these retarded church members. I also say sorry, believe it or not. Only when it's applicable. Internalizing everything, suppressing emotions, thoughts, and external stressors inwardly often leads to chronic anxiety, depression, burnout, physical illness. It often stems from a need for control, people-pleasing, or high sensitivity, resulting in self-blame, social withdrawal, and diminished sense of self. That's kind of weird because I've always had a strong sense of self, but whatever. Signs of internalizing everything. Physical, mental exhaustion, feeling burnt out, empty, and constantly tired. Emotional bottling, holding on to anger, sadness, and stress instead of expressing it. Ruminating, replaying conversations and situations in your mind. I'm really good at that, if you can't tell. Self-blame and sensitivity, taking responsibility for situations outside of your control and taking things personally. I'm not 100% on what that one means. Like, getting blamed for shit that I didn't do. I simply tell people I'm not responsible for your actions, so I guess I don't really have a lot of self-blame. Most of the time I just eye roll and go, you did that. People-pleasing, overextending yourself to avoid conflict or disapproval. Avoid conflict, but disapproval, I really don't give a rat's ass what people think about me. In case you can't tell from these videos, or the fact that I literally don't even seem to care about myself. Effects on health. Mental health issues, increased risk anxiety disorders, major depression, and PTSD. PTSD in spades. Physical symptoms. Potential somatic complaints such as headaches or stomach aches, issues with chronic stress, and high cortisol. Probably, who knows. Feeling disconnected and resentful or withdrawn from other people. Yeah. How to stop internalizing. Acknowledge and separate, recognize your feelings, but detach your self-worth from others' opinions and behaviors. Yeah, recognize your feelings, but detach your self-worth from others' opinions and behaviors. Challenge your perspective. Take a step back and analyze if a situation is truly responsibility or something else. Practice self-compassion. Actively work on setting boundaries and accepting that you cannot control everything. Yeah. And then the last thing, using journals. Anal Eaten Mummy God was the first and only person to tell me, you could really benefit from journaling. And I was like, I'm not taking your advice. Because you're a part of the filthy, disgusting church. Yeah. This is the treatment for it. To stop internalizing everything, actively challenge negative thoughts, set firm boundaries, and express your emotions rather than suppressing them. Utilize techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, journaling to externalize thoughts, practice self-compassion, and recognize that other actions often reflect their own stress and not your worth. Key strategies to stop internalizing. Challenge reframing thoughts. Identify when you're taking things personally and question the narrative as if there is an alternative, less personal explanation for a situation. I don't think I take a lot of things personally, but I might. I mean, I was thinking about it when I read that just now, like, the 2 seconds it took me to read it. Stu murdering the women I like, Blondie stealing the women I like, these people murdering every girl I like. Like, I do take that personally, but it's just kind of something they do when they don't like somebody. They just murder every woman you come across because apparently that's what a good Christian does. So, uh, there's that. Um, Utilize journaling. Write down specific events that trigger you to move emotions from your head to the page, which prevents rumination or looping. I've never been a big fan of journaling because when I was in elementary school and middle school, there was a lot of people stealing other people's journals and then just reading them out loud. And it was just kind of a thing. I don't know if it's still a thing, but people wrote some pretty crazy, fucked up shit in their journals and they really didn't want that shit getting out. And I remember telling people, like, we had this kid that stole this girl's journal and he just brought it into my, like, second grade class when I was at that shitty Aqua school. And he was just reading out her journal to, like, everybody in the class. And I was kind of like, I think she put that in the journal so that she didn't actually do those things because she had, like, thoughts of suicide and murder and killing people. You know, the usual kid stuff. And the guy was kind of a cunt about it, and I didn't understand why he was just so unnaturally cruel. But then later he had a mental breakdown and a freak out where he basically confessed that everything she wrote in her journal is everything he thinks about on a daily basis. So I guess you really shouldn't read other people's journals because I think even him reading it out loud to everybody else was him trying to see if he could find somebody he could connect with and talk to about these things. And I remember he deliberately came to me to seek me out because I was known as that guy that just knew a lot of things. And I told him to eat shit. Write down specific events and triggers to move emotions from your head to the page, which prevents rumination. Set firm boundaries. Learn to say no and communicate your needs directly to others, which prevents the buildup of unexpressed feelings. I guess. Practice self-compassion and awareness. Recognize your own worth independent of others' opinions. Practice self-awareness to identify emotional triggers. Engage in mindfulness. Meditation helps you stay present and detached from negative thoughts rather than becoming consumed by them. Seek therapeutic support, CBTs, support to change ingrained patterns of the internalization, helping you break the habit of self-blame. Pause. Set up 5 minutes before reacting to avoid immediate internalization. Externalize. Talk to a trusted friend or write it down rather than keeping it inside. Let go. Accept that you cannot control others' reactions and focus on your own growth. This is kind of going to sound stupid, but I do this a whole lot where I meet somebody and I'm really good at pointing out their mental disorder. And I don't know how I would have reacted if somebody told me your problem is you internalize everything. Because I myself has never thought of myself as somebody with a mental disorder. And then I found out I have all the mental disorders. But some of those were given to me relatively recently, so I'm just going to be honest with myself about that one. But I don't think anything about Carl Jung and doing the shadow work was the thing I needed when I read this, because everything shadow work is internalizing everything. It is a way to internalize, which is something cults want. It forces you to become individualized, and you just read it right here where it explained that problem with internalizing. This is what internalization does. When you look inward, you end up alienating yourself from everybody around you. Which is good for me, because nobody supports me anyway, so I don't really care about them. Yeah. So, I got into it with Blondie about internalization, because he just sounded like a real ass as I was talking to him about bottled up and repressed emotions. And this is the problem. By the time I spoke to Blondie, I had already talked to Stu, who couldn't handle, he was wrong about everything, and he's the biggest piece of shit on the planet. What Holy shit, why didn't that lightning strike just fucking kill that asshole? Officer Fred, who also I had a long conversation about compartmentalizing. And finally, Blondie, who did the exact same thing. Now, these guys are too stupid to recognize it in themselves, so you're not going to explain that to them because they're dumbasses. But when I read all of this right here, this would have been pertinent information to give me before anything else I did. And I think about boundary setting and this thing I was learning about decking people, and I think about Anal Eating Mummy God telling me you need to journal and you need to punch somebody. And I didn't understand why I needed to punch somebody. To me, that just seemed like a violent, stupid thing to do. But now I understand it's about setting boundaries. You see, instead of just murdering the motherfucker, which is probably the preferred method, punching somebody establishes don't fuck with me rules. Yeah. Now, why on earth these guys were bullying me at my job, and I guess maybe Anal Eating Mummy God was trying to teach me a lesson about setting boundaries by punching a motherfucker. Okay, don't do it at my job. Do it when I'm out in public where I can't get fired, and then you can teach me about how to beat a motherfucker to death. I would have had no problem punching anybody outside of my job. That way I wouldn't have gotten fired. I would have had no problem punching anybody. If, like, my job wasn't involved in the scenario. But this is what happens when you're dealing with stupid motherfuckers. They come up with stupid fucking plans. You gotta think of all the external boundaries of an individual before you just try to punch an individual or try to piss off an individual. I don't know what Anal Eating Mummy God saw in me now, because I look at this mental disorder, I think of all my other neuroses and shortcomings, and I'm like, how the fuck did this guy ever think I had any amount of greatness in me? I don't see it. Whatever, man. You get what you get, I guess. Journaling. Woo-hoo. More mental disorders. Woo-hoo. And I'm going to be serious about this. I told Blondie and I told Anal Eating Mummy God this entire situation was going to go bad from the beginning. And I knew it was going to go bad from the beginning. And I was right about everything. I was right when I said the only thing you're going to do if you force this person to deal with their mental health alone is you're going to give them a mental disorder. You see, the way I figured out this internalization shit was by talking to the AI. And this is going to sound like a really weird thing about me, but my best work is done with other people. Yeah. And AI isn't another person, but it's close enough that I can actually learn things from it, because I guess that's just how I learn, is through other people. I don't know what autism that is. I don't know what retardation that is. But I would have never figured out I internalize everything had I not been talking with the AI. And here's the thing, I would have also figured it out had I had, like, friends or somebody to talk to, but this church goes ahead and just corrupts all my friends, and then they say weird sideways shit that doesn't make sense to me, and they start defending the church for what appears to be no reason, and then I start getting pissed and distrustful, because if I'm telling you these guys are pedophiles, you just shut up and go, they're fucking pedophiles. Okay, Bobby, you're right. But whatever.